Hi, good morning everyone. So I know I posted the clips for a long walk to water on Google Classroom, and I've heard back from a few of you guys that you don't like the audio clips as much as our reading in class. So I brought home the book and I was planning on reading to you guys. So I'm starting with chapter 12 because that's where we left off in class, and I hope you guys look forward to following along. Chapter 12, Southern Sudan, 2009. An iron giraffe. A red giraffe that makes very loud noises. The giraffe was a tall drill that had been brought to the village by two men who had visited earlier. They had returned with a crew of 10 more men and 2 trucks, one hauling the giraffe drill along with the other mysterious equipment, and the other loaded with a plastic pipe. Meanwhile, the land was still being cleared. Naya's mother tied the baby on her back and walked with several women to a place between the village and the pond. They collected piles of rocks and stones and tied them up into bundles using sturdy cloth. They balanced the bundles on their heads, walked back to the drilling site, and emptied the rocks on the ground. Other villagers, using tools borrowed from the visitors, pounded the rocks to break them up into gravel. Many loads of gravel would be needed. Naya didn't know why. The piles of gravel grew larger each day. The clangor of machinery and hammer greeted Naya each time she returned from the pond. Unfamiliar noises that mingled with the voices of men shouting and women singing. It was the sound of people working hard together, but it did not sound at all like water. So we had kind of talked about the 2 trees in class, and why they might drill between the 2 trees is because we know that trees need water to live. So Naya is just confused because you have to remember where she lives, they don't see this kind of architecture being done. Back to Salva's story. The Etang refugee camp, Ethiopia, 1985. Mother, please! Salva opened his mouth to call out again, but the words did not come. Instead, he closed his mouth, lowered his head, and turned away. The woman in the orange headscarf was not his mother. He knew this for certain, even though she was still far away and he had not seen her face. Uncle's words came back to him. The village of Lone Arik was attacked and burned. Few people survived. No one knows where they are now. In that moment, before calling out to a woman for the second time, Salva realized that Uncle had truly meant something Salva had known in his heart for a long time. His family was gone. They had been killed by bullets or bombs, starvation or sickness. It did not matter how. What mattered was that Salva was on his own now. He felt as though he were standing on the edge of a giant hole, a hole filled with black despair of nothingness. I am alone now. I am all that is left to my family. His father, who had sent Salva to school, brought him treats like mangoes, trusted him to take care of the herd. His mother, always ready with food and milk and a soft hand to stroke Salva's head. His brothers and sisters, whom he had laughed with and played with and looked after. He would never see them again. How can I go on without them? But how could I not go on? They would want me to survive, to grow up and make something of my life, to honor their memories. What was it Uncle had said during that first terrible day in the desert? Do you see that group of bushes? You need to only walk as far as those group of bushes. Uncle had helped him get through the desert that way, bit by bit, one step at a time. Perhaps Salva could get through his life at the camp in the same way. That day and no other. If someone had told Salva he would live in the camp for 6 years, he would have never believed it. 6 years later, July 1991. They are going to close the camp. Everyone will have to leave. That's impossible. Where will we go? That's all they're saying. Not just this camp, All of them. The rumors scattered around the camp. Everyone was uneasy. As the days went by, the uneasiness grew into fear. Salvo was almost 17 years old now, a young man. He tried to learn what he could about the rumors by talking to the avid camp workers in the camp. He told them the Ethiopian government was near collapse. The refugee camps were run by foreign aid groups, but it was the government that permitted them to operate. If the government fell, what would the new rulers do about the camps? When that question was answered, no one was ready. One rainy morning, as Salvo walked towards the school tent, long lines of trucks were arriving. Masses of armed soldiers poured out of the trucks and ordered everyone to leave. This kind of reminds me of that scene in Malala when they were helping the refugees. The orders were not just to leave the camp, but to leave Ethiopia. Immediately, there was chaos. It was as if the people ceased to be people and instead became an enormous herd of panicked, stampeding two-legged creatures. Salvo was caught on the surge. His feet barely touched the ground as he was swept along by the crowd of thousands of people running and screaming. The rain, which was falling in torrents, added to the uproar. The soldiers fired their guns into the air and chased the people away from the camp. But once they were beyond the area surrounding the camp, the soldiers continued to drive them onward, shouting and shooting. As he dashed ahead, Salva heard snatches of talk. The river! They're chasing us towards the river! Salva knew which river they meant. The Gilo River, which is along the border between Ethiopia and Sudan. They are driving us back to Sudan, Salva thought. They will force us to cross the river. It was the rainy season. Swollen by the rains, the Gilo's current would be merciless. The Gilo was well known for something else too. Crocodiles. Well, thanks guys for tuning in for chapter 12. I will bring you chapter 13 soon. Stay well.